James, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Tim.
Mate, it's fantastic to have you on the Farm Learning Channel. Those of you who don't know James Higgins is a well-known fencer from Tamworth in New South Wales, and you actually manufacture the fence repair tool. It's been on the channel before, and so do you.
Yep.
Now, mate, I get asked a question quite frequently, and it's surprising how frequently I get asked this question, and that is, what is the best knot to join soft wire with high tensile? And my usual response is, why would you? Because they're two very different wires with very different characteristics to put together on a fence. But there are a couple of situations where you can get away with it, and there's a few occasions where it's absolutely not recommended, aren't there?
Yeah, I've found that over the years. The main application where you can get away with it is in the restraining of an old fence to a new strainer post, and you can join one to the other midline, but only one way. Which way is that?
So we're going to get into that today and more, but we're going to start out by discovering what the actual difference between soft wire and high tensile wire is and why this matters, and it will help you remember when you can use high tensile as a plug and when you can't. Now, James, to better understand the difference between soft and high tensile, you've got a simple test that should illustrate the difference quite easily.
Yeah, I've got a couple dodgy dividing rods here, one out of high tensile 2.5 and one out of soft 3.15 millimetre wire.
Yep, and what are we going to demonstrate with this?
The natural sag, or what I call the standout of the wire.
Okay.
So if you pick up these two wires, you can see they're running parallel to each other here. Now when I stand them up, you can see that the soft wire, which is the one in my left hand, is standing out a lot better than the 2.5 high tensile, which is sagging.
So James, it's pretty important to understand that difference in standout and the characteristics of the two wires, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Now, we're talking about managing the two different types of wire. So when we're straining them up, there's actually different strain tensions for the two wires.
Yep.
So the soft wire is quite a deal lower than the high tensile, isn't it?
Correct. Your soft wire will be 1.2 kilonewtons for the 3.15 millimetre soft and 1.8 for your 2.5 millimetre high tensile.
So nearly a third more just to get that slack out of the wire and stop it from sagging.
Correct. Yep.
So if we were to combine these two in a fence, the 3.15 would start to stretch over its recommended strain tension quite dramatically.
Oh, very easily.
The high tensile would never actually get up to its recommended strain tension and would therefore be slack if it's connected to our soft wire.
Yeah, if you mate the two together and you're trying to get to the recommended strain tension, you'll only ever be able to get to the strain tension of the lower rated wire, and the high tensile won't actually be behaving how high tensile is supposed to be, which is as a giant spring.
So what we've done here is we've actually set this up on the test bench, mate. I did this just before you arrived, actually. And we've set up a figure 8 knot that joins the two wires. So we've got our soft being the main fence section here on the test bench. And then we've got a piece of 2.5 high tensile that's going to be connected to the end of the test bench like you would connect it to a post.
Yeah, righto.
And what we're going to do is we're going to start jacking out the fence tester and keep an eye on the crane scales at the end and see what tension this gets to before the soft wire starts to stretch.
Let's break stuff.
I reckon that sounds like a plan.
So we've got our speed dealers and our safety gloves on now, and we're going to tie a regular termination knot on the end here. Now this is the most contentious thing in the whole world of fencing, the termination knot. Keyboard warriors are already crying out here.
The reality is most of the tension and the strength of the knot is just here, so it doesn't really matter what you're doing back here.
No, I could have done 6 or 7 wraps or 2 wraps and it would be about the same actual result.
All right, so take us through the fence. What have we got here, James, so everyone understands?
So we've got what I call a tail of 2.5 high tensile attached to what is our strainer post, and we've got a figure 8 knot here with a 3.15, which simulates this could be any length of fence. Here it's only a couple meters, but you know, just imagine that's 200 meters, 300 meters, and the effect will be the same with your 2.5 tail, but we're going to test that and find out what actually happens.
Well, James, you're the guest today, so you get to drive the machine.
Oh,
mate.
I get the tools and the play toys.
I'll jump on the camera here, I'll record the tension here. We've got that camera running, so everyone should see what's happening. Speed dealer's on, let's play. Rightio, we're starting out at 0. Geez, we're up to half a kilo already, mate. Just nice and slow and steady on this one. How's it feeling?
Yeah, very easy. It's only got light pressure.
Now, nothing should go wrong. I haven't been hurt badly on this machine yet, so you should be fine, mate. We're up to 65, 78 kilos, 80 kilos, 90 kilos. Okay, so that's about the recommended strain tension now. And it looks like it's coming back, so if you just want to jack it up a little bit more, and we can see it's starting to drop.
Yeah, that's exactly what I predicted it would do.
So jack it a little bit more. And we're up to 250 odd kilos. And finally, at 250 kilos, it was definitely the soft wire that broke. So we took that well beyond its recommended strain tension. So I think we've proven a couple of things. I think we've proven, number one, that the soft wire is going to slowly stretch and lose tension if we leave it in place with high tensile wire at a high tensile relevant tension. And I think the second thing we've proven is that the weakest link in a chain breaks first.
Exactly.
So we've proven something that we already knew.
Yeah, the most interesting part there was the fact that the tension was dropping. Once I got it to a certain point, it would instantly start dropping as the soft wire was stretching. So if you're simulating the fact that this is a high tensile lead out off a strainer post and you've restrained that to an old existing fence, that will continue to stretch and continue to decrease, but the high tensile lead out has performed exactly as you'd hope it would.
So in the case that you're using a high tensile lead out and it's only a metre or so long to repair a section on the end of your fence, you should be able to get away with that because it's not going to affect the behaviour and the performance of the entire fence.
That's correct, because this won't be the part that breaks, the fence will. As if you had it the other way around and this was soft wire, your tail here is always going to be the thing that breaks. If that was high tensile, the fence itself, the wire would be okay, but it would still be very prone to breaking at the post.
Now that's a fair bit of stretch, isn't it, mate?
Yeah.
We didn't have that much slack in the wire when we started.
No, I tried to tie the knot as tight as I could without it actually having the slack in it, and it's definitely was nowhere near that saggy when we did the knot at the start.
No.
It stretched a fair way. That looks like about 65 millimetres, something like that.
And that's just in this short section. So if we're joining soft wire to high tensile, we've got to understand that putting the wire at high tensions where you'd expect high tensile to work well, you're going to be taking the soft well beyond its range of use, aren't you?
Yeah, if you're trying to get up to the tension of the high tensile, this is just going to keep stretching and stretching till it snaps, and probably snap at the knot, which is exactly what happened here.
So combining two equal lengths of soft and high tensile in a fence?
Not a good idea.
Using a small piece of high tensile, maybe around an end post to put a temporary repair in a soft fence?
Works quite well, because you're getting a nice, neat knot. You're getting it all looking professional when you're working on a new strainer post, and your old fence can do whatever it wants down there, but your actual lead out off the strainer is going to stay effective even if something goes pear-shaped, which it has here.
So you can get away with using a short bit of high tensile as a small join or as a small repair in a soft fence, but you can't do it the other way round.
Correct.
You can't use soft wire to repair a high tensile fence or match up with a high tensile fence.
That'll be the weak link. If you've got a 1 metre section of soft wire in a 500 metre high tensile fence, it's always going to be the weakest point here, but you can go the other way. You can put a patch of high tensile wire into the soft wire, because the soft wire is still going to do whatever it wants to elsewhere.
And it doesn't matter if that much high tensile wire is a bit saggy.
No, you get bugger all tension loss in the high tensile in a short section under a metre.
Now this brings up a really interesting cultural phenomenon as well, James. Australians always talk about straining their fences. Americans always talk about stretching their fences. And it's because of wire choice, isn't it?
Wire choice, and the wire choice is ultimately down to temperature variations between the two countries. I don't think that's something that has really come up on your channel before.
No.
Discussing the temperature variations. But there is something to it. Australia, we will get bloody hot, but we don't get bloody cold. Whereas in North America, or northern parts of Europe, you can have an incredibly freezing winter and then an incredibly hot summer with wildfires, or bushfires as we call them here. And you need to have a wire that can actually expand and contract and work with that. And a high tensile is not going to cope with those enormous temperature variations, whereas a soft wire will.
Because the other thing about high tensile is as soon as it's stretched, it's weakened. You
Yes.
try and strain it again and it'll just snap. Whereas soft wire, if it stretches, you can just strain it up again and it's still okay.
Yeah, we were able to see here in our knot that it stretched and it did break because we pushed it too hard, but
Yeah.
it stretched. And if you imagine that's over a couple hundred metres or a longer distance of fence, that stretch can go a fair way before the wire actually fails. So even though it might be horrible looking, it's actually still a wire
Still
in a
functional
fence.
fence.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's why even in Australia, where you've got bushfire prone areas like around creeks, a lot of people will use soft wire because even though the fire will ruin the fence, it'll still be upright and working as a fence.
This is right. So in my application as a fencer, I mostly work with high tensile wire. My part of the country is open plains and croppings, and fire danger is not as big a problem, but you do want your fence to look nice and function for a long period of time. So high tensile is very popular in the Tamworth area, whereas where my family come from in the Walker, up in the hills, everyone uses soft wire. Not only is it just a cultural phenomenon, that's what has been in the area, but the fire danger is higher, and you don't want to constantly be having to deal with rolls of ruined high tensile that have snapped from overheating.
So there you go, James. We've learned a lot today. We started off talking about what kind of knot we could use to join high tensile and soft. We wondered why on earth you would want to. We've come up with a couple of small recommendations for when you can get away with it, even though it's not recommended. And then that's led into a discussion about soft wire versus high tensile and when you should use each. Man, we've covered a lot.
Open the can of worms, and there's a lot more we could cover. We'll have to do it another time.
Absolutely. Good to have you on the channel, mate. Give us a comment as to what you think, soft wire versus high tensile. And if you like this kind of content, don't forget, hit the little subscribe button, give it a thumbs up. Plenty more on timthompson.ag. And hopefully we'll get to break stuff with James again.
I'm keen.